Hello, everyone, and welcome to the rare afternoon live video on the damage report. But news was breaking, and I didn't want to wait all the way until tomorrow to discuss this particular topic, although I will be discussing it tomorrow as well on the damage report with Emma Vigeland when she joins me to break down the news of the day. In addition to Rokana, by the way, who's a guest you're definitely going to want to see on tomorrow's show when we break down his efforts to constrain Trump's ability to launch some sort of conflict with Iran. But thank you for joining me for this. Obviously, the story that I'm alluding to in the title is the CNN implication that Bernie Sanders last year apparently told Elizabeth Warren that he didn't think that a woman could win the presidency, which obviously I have a lot of problems with that reporting. First of all, let's talk about the truth. So, look, Bernie Sanders tried to get Elizabeth Warren to run in 2016 because he thought that Elizabeth Warren could beat Hillary Clinton and then go on to become president of the United States. He only ran in 2016 because she didn't. So it's inconsistent to say, oh, he doesn't think that anyone could ever win that's a woman, when he himself tried to choose who he thought would be the better woman to be the president. He then went and campaigned for Hillary Clinton because he apparently thought that she too could win. And she won by several million votes. So in no way is it plausible, just logically, to say that he doesn't think that a woman could win the presidency. It's also insane to think that he would, in advance of running against Elizabeth Warren, say something so obviously damning to her right before she launched a bid against him, in which she would eventually, of course, have an incentive to reveal this horrible thing that he had said. It doesn't make any logical sense. It's defied by the actual history of Bernie Sanders attempting to get a progressive woman to win the presidency, and would be an insane electoral strategy in 2018. It just doesn't make sense, let alone the fact that obviously people are doing a great job of finding old videos. Back in the 80s, he was talking about how he predicts that a woman will eventually be the president. The simple fact that Hillary Clinton got more votes, it just doesn't make any sense. And so then we talk about the implications of that, the fact that it doesn't make sense. So CNN's willingness to run with the story, despite the fact that his campaign has come out and they have denied that it happened. Elizabeth Warren's campaign didn't confirm that it happened, but they went with it. So why did they go with it? CNN went with the story allegedly because they had 4 sources. So who are these sources? Well, 2 are people that supposedly talked with Elizabeth Warren after this meeting, and then 2 more are familiar with the meeting. What does that make sense? As of right now, you and I are both familiar with the meeting, or at least supposedly what happened in the meeting. That familiar with the meeting doesn't mean anything. Best case scenario, those 2 people who supposedly talked with Elizabeth Warren after the meeting got a true version of what actually happened there, are remembering it correctly a year later, and are not exaggerating in a way that is beneficial to the candidate that they allegedly support. That's all best case scenario. Now think about all the different ways that that could break down. Now, if Elizabeth Warren had misremembered exactly what Bernie Sanders had said, that could interfere. We effectively could begin a chain of the game of telephone. If they are themselves exaggerating what was said, if they're misremembering what was said, all of these are things that could break down, which is why when reporting on something so obviously inflammatory as this, if you were CNN, you would want someone who was in the meeting. And so far, their attempts to get statements from the only 2 people who were in the meeting, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, has met with a denial that it's true from Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren currently not saying anything. So in that case, I'm not saying that you can't do the story, but you have to be way more circumspect with how strong you can say the conclusion is, how sure you can be that it actually happened. Right now, all you have are people who are clearly, best case scenario, biased towards Elizabeth Warren, recollecting what they think that was said. I mean, to run it as this is a fact, this happened, is insane. For CNN to do it one day before a debate that they are themselves involved in, even worse, right before the caucuses, it's crazy to go with a story like this. Now, we can speculate about who it is that actually started this whole thing. And we should do that. We're, of course, going to have to do that. The most obvious is that one of the aides, it's beneficial for them to start it. I know that the go-to is to say that this is Elizabeth Warren's idea. I don't necessarily believe that. Not that it's impossible. It could totally turn out that it was her. But the way that this is being rolled out it's so obviously flawed that it would be kind of a ridiculous strategy for her. Now, that doesn't mean, if she's not the one who started it, that doesn't mean that this isn't on her to deny, because she's clearly had enough time at this point to do that. Her not doing that means that she is now a part of this, whether it was her initial idea or not. She's definitely a part of it. But she's not the only person who can have started it. The aides could have. It could be one of the competitors, including either Buttigieg or Biden. If they had people who talked to these people, they could be pushing it. Because after all, right now, what have we had? We've had 24 hours of Bernie supporters and Warren supporters attacking each other. Now, that might, in the end, benefit one of those two camps, but it could also benefit a camp who isn't involved in that. So Biden is going to do well by comparison. If both Bernie and Warren end up looking bad as a result of this, this will help other candidates, including potentially Biden or Buttigieg. It's right in advance of Iowa, the most important state for Buttigieg, the state that he has the best chance of doing well in. So this certainly will benefit Buttigieg. I think we can't write that off as well. Now, doing this one day in advance of the debate, that is just crazy. And I think that you'll probably agree with me that CNN would not have run this story with what they currently know if it was not Bernie that was going to come out of it looking bad. If they had this sort of unconfirmed information about Biden or about whoever, they would not have run it in this way. I think that we can agree on that. So anyway, that's just a little brief idea of who might have been behind it. Emma and I are going to get into it, but let me ask you, respond just the aides, Warren, Biden, Buttigieg, or someone else, if you think it's someone else. Who do you think was the impetus for this becoming a story for CNN? Who initially reached out to them? I'm seeing some aides so far. Aides, Biden, Obama. That's interesting. I don't know how Biden, well, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, so now here's the thing. Saying that it's the aides is not saying that the onus is not on Warren to do something about this, because let's say, best case scenario, she didn't initially know about it. She has been silent now for several hours, right? And so she could have thrown some water on this fire, but at least as of right now, she hasn't. Perhaps she will. That opportunity remains. She could earn back some goodwill. And honestly, I would just say the end goal is for Trump to be defeated by the best candidate possible. Like everybody, like these sorts of weird games being played by political operatives, the aides, whoever it is, it's not helpful to the cause in any way. Peter Wilk says, CNN ad revenue, who paid for the smear? Yeah, I mean, CNN is certainly benefiting from this. I don't necessarily think that they obviously had someone that they talked to. Now, they needed to be responsible enough in their journalism to not run with it, but I don't think that they would have been the initial impetus for it. Miscellaneous aides, relevant politicians decided to roll with it. I think that most likely is the case. It's incredibly frustrating. Like, you know what I want in advance of this debate? What I want in advance of the Iowa caucus? I want this primary to be focused about the issues. And right now, there are two huge stories in the news that hypothetically we could be focusing on. We could be focusing on climate change and the continued disaster in Australia, and we could be focusing on the current state of American empire and the way that it's being deployed by Donald Trump, thanks to the ridiculous tragedy in Iran. Those are two stories that hypothetically this could be focused on, but it will not be focused on. Instead, it's going to be focused on this ridiculous back and forth that is effectively unconfirmable at this point. Policy over party. Yeah, I would take either of those over what we're focusing on right now. It's really not about either. CNN doesn't want you to focus on real news. Maybe they think it's real news. I don't know. They definitely don't have the Democratic Party's best interest in mind. That's why it's always so ridiculous when Donald Trump will say something like that. Like, you think CNN has the best interests of the Democrats in mind? You think they did in 2016? I have no doubt that they like the Democrats more than they like the Republicans, but they are willing to set fire to both sides if it benefits them. Or who they're owned by, of course. Okay. So CNN's got a video on it. I didn't see the video yet. I read the article, obviously. And I can assume that on social media, at the very least, they are receiving a very negative response to that. Yeah, CNN in particular has been, I would say, more vigorously opposed to Bernie Sanders than even MSNBC over the past 2 years. HuffPost is running with it on the front page. That is, I guess, not shocking, but disappointing. Freaking insane. When this sort of news cycle hits, doesn't it feel like no, everyone in their weird incentives that they're pursuing is going to do whatever it takes to get Donald Trump reelected? Doesn't it feel like that? Don't shame the network ineffective, shame the persons involved. Why not shame all of them? I mean, look, let's say a couple of CNN journalists got some anonymous aides who weren't in the room to say that X happened. As the editor, you could say, no, we're not running with that. That's ridiculous. It's not a story. But they are running with it, and they're promoting it all over the place, which makes it not just a problem of a couple of journalists. It's the entire thing. John, do you believe Bernie wins California? California is a must-win. Look, so like I said on the morning stream, there's no must-win, really, because a win doesn't, in a proportional, allocation of delegates thing, doesn't really mean anything. I do think that he'll do best in California, and I hope that that's a big gap so that he gets a lot of extra delegates from it. But simply coming in first in any one state, even the big one, that by itself doesn't necessarily mean too much. Look, it's going to be very interesting to see what Warren says. What is her first comment on this? She's almost certainly going to be asked at the debate. Is she going to throw, fuel on the fire? Is she going to defend Bernie? Look, even if she defends Bernie at this point, if she doesn't say anything today, thank you, Cheryl, for that. If she doesn't say anything today, she doesn't say anything tomorrow, goes to the debate, even if she defends Bernie on the stage, that is not enough, because that is allowing the damage to be done on a lower level all over the place. So that's not enough. She needs to put out a statement today, effectively. She should have already. Yes, if everybody could hit the like button, that would be very nice too. By the way, did you see the video of, I like to think of as Frank Reynolds endorsing Bernie Sanders? That was one thing that actually made me feel a little bit better today. Hold on a second. Let me just, get rid of that a-hole. Thank you. Who do you think gets the most votes in Texas? Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I don't know that I've actually seen any polling there. I would assume it's probably going to be somewhat representative of the national trend. I think that Bernie could do quite well in Texas, actually. I don't see why not. See, that's interesting. So I know a lot of people are saying the smear is not going to work, and that is possible. And I do think that, look, the issue is that this is not a purely online thing, that if CNN is going to be running this, and if they're going to make it a focus of the debate, that makes it a bigger issue. It might affect some people. Okay. Hope it all backfires. I mean, it doesn't seem like that usually is the case. I will also say, I know this is going to be a weird thing to focus on. Me and Emma were talking about this on Twitter. In this case, I think it's accurate. I hate the term smear, basically. And when I say that, like I tweeted it, most people don't know what I mean. And I get that because it's a weird thing to focus on. I really like language. The issue for me is that smear is overused, and generally the way that it's used colloquially is to imply that something is untrue, without actually stating that it's untrue, which would be a falsifiable thing. If you say that something is untrue and then we show that it is in fact true, then your statement has been falsified. But if you just imply that it's untrue without actually stating it, then you can sort of cast a pall on this attack, when even if it's true, you're sort of just saying you don't like it, like it's inconvenient for something to be pointed out. It's been so overused. Virtually anything that reflects poorly on a candidate can be called a smear, but the vast majority of criticisms of candidates are not smears. They're not untrue. They're just uncomfortable truths for people who support that candidate to have to accept. Is that weird? I don't know. Maybe that's a weird nitpicky thing for me to focus on. In this case, it's not true, so I'm fine with using the word smear. I just think that it's way overused. Like, I think that something has to be, at the very least, inherently dishonest for the word smear to be merited for its use. So I saw, Nancy, you said that Beto is canvassing for more established Democrats. I hadn't seen Beto doing any campaigning at all. Who in the Democratic primary has Beto been supporting? I guess I'm not even entirely sure that I follow him on Twitter. Yeah, the day before the debate, Reginald. That's the thing. And honestly, like I'm trying to think, like hypothetically, let's say that this was masterminded by Elizabeth Warren. Would you have rolled it out now? Maybe if you think that it'll give you a little boost going into Iowa, maybe. But it seems kind of a little bit early, honestly. It's going to be very interesting to see how CNN covers this on the debate. I mean, we know how they're going with it now, obviously, but it's going to be very interesting. I mean, imagine tomorrow, it's the first question. Imagine. Or the second question. You know, they'll have to throw out something really fast about how Medicare for all is impossible and can never be paid for. But imagine if it's like the first question to Bernie Sanders. Like, you don't think it'll happen? I think it could happen. In any event, look, so I'm going to be doing the main show with Anna Kasparian in like, I don't know, an hour or two. We're going to be talking about it on there as well. I'm interested to see what Anna thinks and who she thinks is behind this. But it is helpful to get your perspective. It seems like most people think that it's probably the aides. The question would be, if these are aides close enough that they're having conversations with Elizabeth Warren about these sorts of things, would they have done something like this without getting the okay in advance? That's an interesting question. Okay. So I saw, I think Gray Bear says, let's hope he can deliver a good enough defense. But here's the thing. What's a defense against something that somebody claims you said if you didn't say it? I mean, you can say that you didn't say it, but the damage is already done. Like, it becomes he said, she said, and, you know, a lot of reasonable people are going to be like, well, would you make up something like that? I don't know. That's what makes this sort of thing. And that's also, I think that should play into the whole smear thing too, where whether it's true or not, it still ends up hurting the person anyway. Liz Markowitz, I'm not familiar with her politics either. I'm not familiar with that candidate, unfortunately. Maybe a good defense is ask Warren. Maybe. I don't know. Do you want to put the ball in her court? Like, you have to defend yourself in some way. And also, look, one of the interesting things about this race is, for the most part, the top tier candidates have been relatively steady for months and months at this point. So look, I'm frustrated by this because it's ridiculous that CNN is running with it, and I don't like how Warren is handling it. But do I think that this is going to shift like 5 percentage points of voters? No, I don't think that. I think it's important, and so I'm talking about it. I'm not talking about it because I think that it itself is going to determine who wins Iowa or anything like that. So let's not go overboard on this. This will probably be in the news for a day. Maybe it'll be brought up again at the debate, and then we'll probably move on. I think that the precedent that is being set is scarier than this story by itself. If the mainstream media is going to run with literally anyone someone tells them Sanders said or did, then it's going to be a rough couple of months coming up. And there's a lot of reason to believe that that's going to happen. Yeah, I agree. It is going to be a very ugly year. Offer to take a lie detector. I think that, it would seem too defensive, I think. Okay, everybody. I should probably run. Got to get ready for the full show. Anna and I are going to be doing both hours, and you're definitely... Why am I sniffing? Because I've been sick for like a week and a half. Can you not hear it in my voice? I'm very sick right now. I'm on a lot of medication, actually. And so it's a little bit harder for me to organize my thoughts. So I'm a little bit sorry for that. But tomorrow on my show, on the Damage Report, I'm going to have Emma Vigeland is going to join me. We're probably going to talk about this story again, actually, and see how it's developed in advance of the debate. But we're also going to have Congressman Ro Khanna, who's been trying to stop us from going to war with Iran. He's going to be joining us to talk about how he's going to be managing that process. So that's important. Also, by the way, he's an important part of Bernie Sanders' campaign. So very good timing on Ro Khanna joining us tomorrow. So you're definitely going to want to see that. You on the Trump meds? I'm not. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes. I will try to get better. Rosario Dawson can finally endorse Bernie. Look, she might. I think that if I had to guess, I would say that Booker is probably going to endorse Elizabeth Warren. But you could have Rosario Dawson endorse Bernie again. Why not? She's been freed up, I guess, to do that. I don't think that they have to endorse the same person. Okay, everybody, if you're just joining the chat right now, feel free to watch the video. I gave you my thoughts, responded to questions and all that. I do have to go get ready for the show, but thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow morning with another live video, by the way.